New Zealanders letting money control them. People were saving themselves into poverty, really. From there, it was another year of trying to extract myself and paying $100,000 in the end at 23 to get this man out of my life, which is pretty scarring. A lot of people who claim they don't care about money spend a disproportionate amount of their time thinking about it. If you talk to people about money, they will say they're too busy and they don't have enough of it to start investing. Those are the two things they'll tell you. Neither of those things is true. My husband's better at money than me, and I'm like, how do you know he's great at it? And then this look of shock comes across their faces as they realise I actually have no idea why I think he's better at it. Women were not involved in these arenas until relatively recently. The system of work was not designed for us. I think the biggest lesson I took away from Hatch was...
My next guest is a New Zealand entrepreneur. She co-founded Hatch. It's a fintech helping Kiwis invest. She helped about 200,000 Kiwis get on the app. In 4 years, she's been able to have about $1 billion worth of investment created and about 50% increase in share investing in New Zealand. She's now leading the charge to establishing a mission called Powrsuit to close the gender leadership gap. And her name is Natalie Ferguson. So Natalie, you've built and exited a fintech, which is now you're building a leadership movement. So both sound really massive for me, but I wanted to strip it right back. When you were starting Hatch, which is the investment platform, what problem were you so obsessed with solving? And we will get into the reasons why you started it later. But I want to start with, why are you so obsessed with solving? What problem were you so obsessed with solving?
New Zealanders letting money control them. We had, at the time, it was about 2017, we had so much money sitting in bank accounts and term deposits. And that money goes backwards, by the way, because of inflation. It doesn't keep up with it. So people were saving themselves into poverty, really. We had been severely burnt by the 1980s share market crash, and because of geographical problems, New Zealanders have never really embraced investing. We see it as, the money you can only afford to lose, and something that is like trading and Wall Street and finance bros, and it was really holding us back. So the problem we were trying to solve is people letting money rule them, and the lack of it ruling their lives when we retire, how we spend time with family, staying in jobs and relationships we hate, because we didn't have the financial independence to be able to make our own choices.
So clearly this is kind of crossing over to a bit of a why you started this quite naturally. And is this part of your own story? Because I was watching a video of yours last night, a presentation with your co-founder. I think you were still leading Hatch, and you were talking about you started with a nice story of yourself being in a relationship. Would you mind sharing that with us, especially to New Zealanders who might relate as well, having the same background and story, so that they, I suppose, be inspired?
Yeah, I was very fortunate to grow up with parents who were investors. They invested in property, and so I was always very aware of having money as a tool. I'm not emotional about money. It's a tool to buy freedom, effectively.
I love that. I want to get back into that later, that you're not emotionally, and I want to know what that really means, because this is quite powerful. Yeah,
well, and I think it's really one of the biggest mindset shifts we need to make. But then at 18, I got into a relationship with someone who was really not a nice person, and it was a terrible, awful relationship. I always hesitate to use the word abusive, because I think it, it's that, and I don't know, it feels big and scary, and I didn't want to use the words at the time. But I left that at about 23, and it took me probably about a year. I remember I was absolutely a shell of myself, walking into a lawyer's office and with a friend who had found the father of one of the people we debated with at high school, and said, we have to go into this lawyer's office because he's not leaving you alone. We had a business together. He was using that to control everything in my life and try and stay in my life. We'd well and truly broken up. And I remember the lawyers looking at me and going, oh, you're this 23-year-old girl who's had a bad relationship or a bad breakup, and you're throwing your toys. And then they rang me back about 6 hours later, having just got off the phone with this guy, and said, we're going to need 3 people on this. And from there, it was another year of trying to extract myself and paying $100,000 in the end at 23 to get this man out of my life, which is pretty scarring. When you and it really, if I hadn't had, I paid all that money, by the way. I had a business somehow. I look back and I just think, how at 23 was I running a business with this person actively trying to control me and shut it down, with this legal situation happening, and still managed to pay that amount out of my own pocket along the way.
Well, what was the business?
It was a web design company. So I started straight out of, during university. I hated, funnily enough, I hated computers. I hated technology.
Funny.
But I feel like I might be similar to you. I loved communicating. I loved storytelling. And I suddenly clicked at maybe 2 years into uni that this was a tool for communication and connection. So started doing websites, and very much around, at the time it wasn't really known, but making them really usable to achieve outcomes that businesses wanted. This was like 2001. So people still had websites as almost like a vanity billboard, whereas I really believed that they could be your 24/7 shopfront. So launched a business out of university and had that for quite a few years.
Are you entrepreneurial at heart?
It's so funny. My dad was military. So I didn't really think about that. But now on reflection, my mum had to move, 20 times in 20 years. We lived all over the world. As a result, she couldn't hold down a career because she was always moving. And she, turns out, when I look back, is a massive entrepreneur. She did so many different things in my childhood. She worked at refugee camps. She taught ESOL. She made, she's an artist and made craft, and really instilled that mindset from very early on. I got my first job at 7. I fell in love with a German Shepherd down the road on the Air Force Base and started walking it and started getting paid to walk it. I sold trumpets at Christmas in the park when I was 9. So I think Mum always had this, just go on and turn it into a business. I didn't really talk about it like that.
Isn't that funny? Because do you think that has been really helpful for you down the line, for starting Hatch and starting big enterprises, being part of the Powrsuit mission that you're on?
Yes.
I want to go into a number of areas now. So you were obsessed with solving the problem of people not making the most use of their money.
Yeah, letting it control them. I keep saying letting it control them because we do. A lot of people who claim they don't care about money spend a disproportionate amount of their time thinking about it. It is something that weighs heavily. The stress and the burden of not having enough money costs you a lot. It costs you a lot of time. It costs you a lot of energy and stress. And it costs you a lot of money not managing it properly and not having enough of it. So I really do see it as the problem of money controlling us.
What if someone's listening now thinking money is controlling them and they feel stuck with that? They feel like, what's the problem? Why am I not making enough? Or there's a lot of people that listen and actually even watch our clips on TikTok and LinkedIn and everywhere. And I feel like the money conversation, the wealth conversation in New Zealand is really massive and it's quite of an interest. So, you're touching on something quite sensitive for people. Yeah,
there's some amazing platforms now, like our friends that invest in The Curve that do incredible financial literacy and really are helping people reframe their mindsets. But I think we are really emotional. We tie money to our value, and it's something that we are trained or socialized to never talk about. It's seen as something that we can't do. And then when you look at the representation of money, even on the internet, I haven't Googled it recently, but when we started Hatch, I Googled finance and investor, and it's just all men in suits. Those are the messages we get our entire lives. So we end up believing a whole bunch of stuff about money that isn't true. But what also happens, and I found this really fascinating, I spent ages, I interviewed hundreds of women, especially with finance, and I could notice the moment their eyes glazed over, it's not even an active opting out of finances. It's a really ingrained, this area is not for me, I'm not even going to touch on it. And that's the response that I would get time and time again.
I'm so fascinated by the fact that you've spoken to heaps of people, you were talking hundreds, because to deeply understand your customer's problem, you need to talk to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're a bit of a queen on that.
Yeah, I love talking to people, but also the thing that I've learned in business is we like to focus on tangible problems. So like if you talk to people about money, they will say they're too busy and they don't have enough of it to start investing. Those are the two things they'll tell you. Neither of those things is true, because even in the time that they've taken to speak to you, they could have started investing. And if they've got $5 free, they could start investing. So it's actually neither of those things is true. So what I've realized through doing so much research over the years is that you always have to look for the intangible objections, like what is actually holding people back from solving this thing.
And how did you find that out?
You get really curious, which I imagine you're very good at as well. You get really curious and you let go of your own biases and expectations. Often when we go into research, people have an idea of what they think the answers will be, or they bring their own experiences into it, whereas you just got to totally let go of the solution. Who cares what your solution is?
Gotcha.
You just want to really understand, and I often test those things. So like, okay, well, I'll give you $100 now. Would you invest it? You know, and then you see what actually happens. So it really is just asking and really getting to the root of those things. So another popular myth is my husband's better at money than me. The number of times I've been told that my husband takes care of the investing, he's great at it. And I'm like, how do you know he's great at it? And then this look of shock comes across their faces as they realize I actually have no idea why I think he's better at it. I actually don't know if he knows anything about money. And that actually can be a real light bulb moment. We could start that path back into really embracing money as a tool from those moments, those little light bulb moments where people go, actually, I'm a really successful person in my career. I run the family budget. I've managed money a lot. Why did I just decide that my husband was better at this thing? I'm going to challenge that belief and start to take action.
Okay, so what else do you ask those people? How do you, I mean, this is an entrepreneurship podcast, and part of being an entrepreneur is having an idea and executing on that idea to somehow convince someone else to pay for you, to pay you for the service or the product. Part of that is research. And I love that you are quite radical in that sense. Like you're very obsessed with customers and what are they thinking and their problem. And you've gone out and you asked and you want to dig deeper. And you were talking about not having a preconceived idea or even the solution. You're going in with an open mind, like a white page. That is fascinating because most co-founders would walk into a client research or customer research with their product in hand, trying to adjust it to the problem of the consumer. But you're saying that you don't think about the solution that you have. You just go in and you just ask them, what's the problem? Tell me about your problems and why haven't you solved it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose different people do it in different ways, but that's my approach. And I think often we miss the first stage of research, which is discovery, and we jump straight to our hypotheses of what we think the solution is and then go and try and prove that it is the solution, because we've all got this like drive to be right about things.
So is this can you walk me actually through a framework that people can take home right now when they're trying to get into like a research mode in their entrepreneurship?
I'll use Powrsuit as an example because I think it's a great example and it's very recent. When we left Hatch, we got acquired in 2021 and we had become obsessed with the gender wealth gap because we'd grown our platform. We had hundreds of thousands of investors and most of them were men. And we had spent a bunch of time and energy figuring out really, really easy ways to change those mindsets and behaviors in women and take them from being very disillusioned or disempowered when it came to money to being confident, capable investors. So we knew we had some tools that worked. Then we left and we were like, what's the next problem that we could get obsessed about? And saw that this gender leadership gap hadn't closed at all. Weirdly, the gender leadership gap and the gender wealth gap are correlated for quite a few reasons. One, the obvious one, the more women in leadership positions, the more money we have in our hands. But secondly, they were actually both areas that were designed by men for men. And that's not a complaint, it's just fact. Women were not involved in these arenas until relatively recently. So the system of work was not designed for us or for around two parents working or any of that stuff. So we went, okay, we've been talking about the gender leadership gap for a very long time, like 20 years, I feel like, almost to the point everyone thinks surely it must be done by now. Okay, so no one's closed it yet, though. In fact, in many ways, it's getting wider. Why is that not the case? Why is it not closing? So we start with that, like, why? And then you look to the general narrative around it, which is the same in finance. Women are broken. We are risk averse. We take career gaps. We lack confidence. All of those things that we are afraid to negotiate. We don't apply for jobs unless we're 120% qualified. And we just went, are those things true? Like, these are narratives we've been spruiking for so long. Are they true? So where we got to quite quickly, we started just talking to women. We went, okay, we're just going to talk to a bunch of women about what their experience of all this stuff is, and realized very quickly, confidence is such a misnomer. It's a thing that we pretend is a thing, but it's not a thing. It's just a symptom. Like, if you have been knocked back multiple times, you will have lower confidence. You can't solve for confidence. You got to solve for the things that make you have lower confidence. So scrap that thing. And then we looked through some of the other, like, do women actually negotiate less? No, we negotiate more. We negotiate more, but no one negotiates enough. Only 50% of the population negotiates. Okay, so that's not true. And then when it came to all of these different factors around what was holding women back, when you spoke to them, they weren't true, but they actually told us the things that they really did struggle with in their careers: managing the juggle, microaggressions and biases at work, the way role models were presenting, who are often white men. They couldn't replicate that behavior and get the same results because the way the world works. So lots of different things that they told us they were really struggling with. And so then we went, okay, so this is a thing. Like, there is a problem. This group is really willing and able to solve it. The way the problem, the factors leading into the problem are actually quite different from what we talk about day to day. What's next? And then we start with a really simple experiment. So we launched our newsletter because one of the beliefs I have with research is you have to get as close to actually your product or someone putting money on the line as possible. I hear this all the time from entrepreneurs, and I always say, please just get someone to pay, because they'll say, everyone told us they loved this. And I'm like, until they've put money on the table, they are trying to be kind to you. They are telling you something that they think you want to hear. So you have to push for actual action as a result. So we launched our newsletter. We've put $0 behind it marketing wise. And we just started testing the way we might approach this problem. Like, can we build micro skills? Can we challenge these conventional mindsets around the gender leadership gap? And we iterate. That's a once a week thing. We can iterate that every week. And the test there was, are people replying to us? Are they getting value out of this? And we could tell as the newsletter grew very quickly that they were. Then we move on to, okay, so the women themselves are experiencing this problem. We have a fundamental philosophy that women shouldn't have to pay to solve it. It is actually an organizational issue, not a women's issue, because this is a $7 trillion a year economic issue, the underutilization of women in the workforce. So our organization's going to pay for it. So we ran a pilot and saw if organizations would pay $1,000 for a woman to go along. Proved that. And so each step along the way, we pivot, we iterate, we change, we learn, we test, all the way through to now, where we're still testing everything all the time.
Okay. I do want to find out from you in terms of Hatch, how you did, what was the framework, and if you can please simplify it for me in more of a bullet point, like, so that whoever is like listening thinking, okay, I just want to write this down.
Okay. Yeah. So you start with just having conversations with people about the problem. You know what your problem is, and you start asking them about how they experience it. The second thing you do is then you come up with, I suggest 3 to 5 different ways you might solve it. So totally different concepts. Draw them on a scrap of paper, draw them in a, design tool. Just come up with a homepage, almost a scrappy homepage that conveys a very loose value prop. Then you take those 5 options, 3 to 5 options, and put them in front of those people and say, does this solve your problem? Does this solve your problem? So now they're comparing the options rather than just having one. Then you take the one that's in all honesty, I wouldn't even take any of them unless someone's grabbing it out of my hand and asking to pay, which is what happened with Hatch. They went, I need this. How do I get to the top of the list? I want this. Can I put my credit card down now? As soon as you get to that stage, that's when you know that's the kernel of the thing you want to build. And then along the way, you just build minimal stuff and wait for people to scream at you about the stuff that's missing, and then keep adding to it.
Interesting. So you don't come up with one solution and say this could be your problem. No, this is your problem. This could be your solution. You have to come up with multiple. Like with Hatch, what were the multiple solutions that you had for your clients?
We learned things like people said they didn't have enough money. They wanted to invest with their friends. They wanted to understand their net worth better. Like they told us all of these things. So one solution was an investing club, and we put together a homepage around that. Another one was a fantasy football style app that you could use your team, but it was different investments. We had a net worth dashboard where you would pull together and get an understanding of how much money you had. And then the final one was an investing platform where you could buy Apple shares and Tesla shares. And we deliberately put some of those big brands on it. And we found out very quickly when you put down a club for people, they go, oh, but what if my friend doesn't want to invest in the same thing as me? Oh, and they start to tell you all the reasons why not. Fantasy football was kind of fun but gimmicky. It didn't feel serious, and we were about changing the wealth habits, not just having fun with money. And so then with that, what eventually became Hatch, and it was very, very basic at the time, people said, I really need this. I've missed out on Amazon. I missed out on Apple. I'm not missing out on Tesla. I have been actively looking for ways to invest in these companies, and I can't do it for less than $200 a pop. So, so that was where we started going down that angle.
Right. So interesting. I haven't really heard of that one before. I mean, it's quite fascinating. And this is why I have this podcast, because every entrepreneur has gone through and did something successful, would have had so much work in the background. Like you guys didn't release the current form of Hatch. Like the current form is an iteration from trials and errors, right? Mm-hmm. How different is Hatch when you first started to what it is today?
I mean, I haven't been there for a couple of years now, but I still invest through Hatch.
When you sold it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like the 80-20 rule, right? You start with the smallest thing that maximizes the value, which was access. So in some ways, it hadn't really changed a lot from access, but along the way, you add the extra features. So around different styles of being able to buy, like can you buy in different times of hours, create watch lists, better reporting. So all of that stuff comes, but the kernel has to be 80% of the value, in my opinion. And then as you grow, you can expand into different areas. But that's why I believe in the start with a different concepts, because that is the cheapest and easiest times to adapt. Once you've put code down, it gets way harder.
And AI can do code for you these days.
Yeah. But even then, you are mentally more committed to one way of doing things. It's so much, we have loss aversion. It's so much harder to scrap something once it's there.
The next question I would have is, did you have multiple ideas? Obviously, you thought about the problem. You did a bit of research about the problem, whether it's actually something that you can solve. And then you had multiple solutions. When it comes to finding the people to talk to, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, that's part of the research. Everything's part of the research, right? Like, so with Powrsuit, we talked to the first tranche of people and then said, is there someone else I should talk to? And part of that test is, should they?
The first person that you talk to.
You can go to friends and family, friends of friends, colleagues.
Right.
We actually even walked out to a cafe and said, can I buy you coffee and just have a chat to you? Like, that first tranche is just absolute discovery, and then going, who is our audience? Like, we don't even know necessarily who that is unless you start with a really clear idea. And I think the other approach a lot of entrepreneurs play is, I've been in this industry, I see this problem up front every day. They can kind of skip a lot of this stuff. But if you're circling an area but you aren't 100% sure, go broad and then narrow down.
Interesting. So you start with friends and family. And you explore, you expand later on. You start to see who else might be interesting. What you're saying is, you wouldn't know your ideal target market from the day one, because that's what's drilled into entrepreneurs. You need to know your ideal target market, and you need to know who you're serving, who needs your product. But when you're starting out, you don't know.
Well, this is pre-product, right? So you actually have no idea. And I wouldn't say start with friends and family and then in the future, it's sort of a hub and spoke model. Start with a group and try and expand out as quickly as possible to identify. So we very quickly are able to group different people based on that early research and go, this group is not aware they have a problem. They are so disengaged from their money. We'd have high education to even get them. This group is really willing and able and absolutely trying to solve the problem. which one are we going to focus on? We're going to focus on this one and find more people like them and start working with them.
So you would rather work with people who are open to the idea, haven't done it before, but they're willing to try, or do you target people who are already investing, but they're not doing a good job?
I mean, I'm never a huge demographics person. I'm a behavior and mindset person.
Exactly.
So it doesn't really matter if they invest or not. Are they actively trying to solve this problem? And I think that's a thing we sometimes miss. It's like spreadsheets are often your biggest competition, or spreadsheets and apathy are your biggest competition most of the time. So if you can find people who are trying to solve a problem, even if they're not solving it, if they're solving it through something else completely that's unrelated, fine. Like, at least they're there. As soon as you have to educate people, it's a lot harder.
And it's more, it takes time and effort and energy and
they can be
resources.
your fast followers. Like, you just need that early adopter group, and then they build that movement behind them.
So with Hatch, and then obviously with Powrsuit, whichever you want to start with, how did that look like, the early adopters for those two movements?
So with Hatch, the early adopters were primarily men, as you could probably see from our stats as we grew, men who were interested in money and who it was a hobby for them. Like, we always laughed, they were the people who would be out in the pub on Friday talking about their latest investment and boring everyone. And we're still in early adopter mode, really. It's people going through some kind of transition. So they're either moved countries, they're stuck and they're trying to think about what's next, they're returning to work. They've gone through a transition or going through a transition and really want to, and they're ambitious and they want to get the support and the connections they need to take that next step. So they could be a CEO or they could be straight out of university, but they are united by this mindset and behavior and situation that they're in.
Okay, so now that you know who's your target market with Powrsuit, or are you still figuring it out?
I think we're still figuring it out. And also at Powrsuit, we've added an extra layer of complication in that our users aren't necessarily our customers. So the decision makers, so we're a professional development platform. So it is often learning and development, people and culture, HR leaders making the decisions around what products to roll out and what solutions to roll out. So we have sort of a double-pronged self-service model where individuals use their own budget and sign up, but 60% of our members come from companies like Fonterra, Contact Energy, really all the energy providers who buy like 20, 30, 40 seats and put a bunch of women on.
Quick one. My friends at Academy X know exactly how it feels. AI is moving fast and you're busy at work, it's hard to know what's worth your time and you're feeling the pressure. That's why they created the Master of Technological Futures. It's a part-time project-based course built for professionals who don't want another course that is full of theory. It's for entrepreneurs driving change inside organizations, for entrepreneurs building their own thing, and mid-career leaders who want to stay relevant. One thing that you'll actually walk away with is a clear, practical action plan that you can put straight into your work. Plus, you'll get one-on-one advisor support and the backing of a cohort of leaders going through it with you. Why not check it out? The next intake starts 30th of October and applications are closing soon. Click the link in the description and apply today. Okay, back to the episode. How do you get buy-in from those big companies?
I mean, I would say we're still learning because, and again, it's just even sales is research, right? You're learning about objections, you're learning about mindsets. So what we found with Powrsuit, the things that are really in common amongst those decision makers is they're often in male-dominated industries. So they recognize there is a need. There's first and only, and they're often having higher churn rates of women out of the industry. They may have had personal experience or have children, young girls, and they don't want them to have the same barriers. They see the barriers. And they're often high-performing organizations all going through transformation or come through transformation and realize that they need to do something because your salaries are fixed and you could pay someone $100,000 salary and tack on a $500 membership and massively improve the chances they're going to stay longer and increase their performance. So like it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it is no-brainer, isn't it? So, but in terms of your relationship with the bigger companies and the organizations like Fonterra, ASB, if you ever do work with these people, what are your steps to even approaching those big organizations to even get a buy-in from them and explain, like, as an entrepreneur, what have you learned? Talking about sales, it's not easy. Not everyone is really good at sales.
Yeah, no.
And this is the biggest slap on the face when it comes to entrepreneurship for most people who are just starting out, thinking, I'm good at what I do, but I'm not good at selling it. How do I frame it in the right way?
Well, Hatch was B2C, so we didn't have to worry about that at all. So this is a huge learning curve for us. And I'm not going to even say that we closely have it right.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've now realized is I'd wish I'd learned scale B2B sales a lot earlier on. I think it is one of the most critical career skills you can have these days.
Can you please expand on that?
Well, it just doesn't really matter what role you have. If you are able to pitch and present the value you offer, it works for your career as well as the company or products you're selling. You're able to navigate and have executive presence in situations where people feel like they can trust you and want to buy whatever you're selling. And also just I'm a huge fan of failure. So building resilience and rejection and being comfortable. My favorite quote right now at the moment is find the thing that scares you most and do it so much that it feels boring. Like sales should be that. And when you watch epic salespeople, they're just like, I don't care. Like they hung up on me, right, next. Like it is such a non-event in their lives, whereas most of us build it up into this like big scary, what if they say no? And we teach this at Powrsuit. And okay, they say no, then what happens? Nothing? Okay, great. Like let's start getting those no's under our belt. So absolutely not an expert. Neither is my co-founder, but we try and do pull. So like we run a bunch of events. We have a massive advocacy from our members. I don't want to take credit for this. They are changing their lives through Powrsuit. We provide the conditions. They do the work. They are the ones sharing Powrsuit within organizations and often saying, can I connect you? Like we had someone say, I'm in China at the moment the other day. I really want you to come and work for this organization. Can I tell them about you? Like that's what our members are doing for us all day. They're an unpaid sales force. Then it's just a matter for us of figuring out how to shush for a minute so that they can talk to us and figuring out how to
Why do you say that?
Because that's the hardest thing about sales is it's not really talking, it's listening. And you get so excited about the thing you do that you keep talking about it and they don't want to hear it. They want to solve their problems. They're not really interested in your shiny thing. They just want to like have the solution to the thing that they're struggling with.
So what do you do in the case when you realize you've been speaking too much?
You try and shush. Well, actually, I feel like we just learn each step of the way. And sometimes you just go, that was dumb. I did a dumb call. And I try and get into a research mindset and just go, I'm here to learn. And also we are both, I think, in our top strengths is learning. We love learning. So we surround ourselves, like we're going to do a day of cold calling tomorrow. We've never really done it before. So we have a friend who works in a startup who we're going to go sit with her and break the ice and just do it all day.
So when you quote unquote, shut up in a sales call, cold calling call, I like to call it gold calling because you never know what gold you're going to find. What question, how do you switch into that learning curious mode? Teach us something about that for people who are listening and thinking, I do have a product business or a service business and I really need to learn how to develop my sales techniques. You've done heaps of that. So again, like, do you have frameworks that you go by to ensure this sales call or even this discovery call is going to be successful?
I feel like I need to do a sales for dummies because I feel like I am a dummy when it comes to this. And again, I am no expert at this. And we are learning. So step one, I would say surround yourself with salespeople. They are very generous with their time. And well, in our experience, they've been very generous with their time and very happy to teach us their frameworks. They're all slightly different. We have not done cold calling yet, to be clear, but we have done warm calling. I suppose if someone downloads one of our impact reports or demo videos, then sometimes we'll give them a call. My rules that people have taught me that I do sometimes live by and sometimes don't is spend the first half an hour learning, asking questions. They have different words for saying this, but who controls the budget? Are you the decision maker? Are you in a position to buy? And try and unearth what is the problem you're trying to solve. All of that information as quickly as possible. in my experience, a lot of the time they're not the right person to speak to. They don't have the authority to make the decision. Can you find the right person? Can you not? There's all sorts of little things that come into play there. Then you want to move on to a more of a, this is how we're going to solve your problem, be it on the same call or a future call. Everyone tells us you want people to lock in really, really quickly, like you want them to be sold within the first 10 days, otherwise it's too long. Then there's the flip side where other people say, no, your lead cycles these days are like 6 to 12 months, depending on the size. So that's all the stuff we're still learning. Like we're only 18 months in, so we're still very much learning what works and how.
And is this very different to the B2C with Hatch?
Yes, because B2C is just all awareness building and building nurture pathways and onboarding processes that really guide individuals through, which we do for Powrsuit as well, because we love a white gloved onboarding service and that is part of our product. So we do all of that same sort of style stuff in a slightly different way because it's a different industry. But the actual sales side is, you don't need to do that for individual stuff so much.
Which one is harder, B2C or B2B?
Well, given we're doing a sort of a hybrid model at the moment, B2C is easy in the sense of people self-service. So you build a whole bunch of marketing material, you go to events, we're doing podcasting, all of that sort of stuff, and people drive themselves through. So like in some ways, the effort is earlier on and the effort is also a win-win because then when you're doing B2B sales, they've seen all that stuff as well. So they've seen you around. It's probably higher effort, higher reward with B2B because you can land one partner and get 30, 50 seats sold. Whereas B2C, you're one-to-one every time. So you cannot scale that in a traditional sales model.
I suppose you can scale B2C because if you're in an event and you're speaking to 200 people.
Yes, but I suppose when I say sales, I'm thinking like your classic sales calls.
Oh,
and if you're selling a $500 membership or $49 a month membership, you can't be calling people. We can't be calling people all day to do that. We used to do a lot of that, going back to the research thing. When someone would sign up to our newsletter, we'd offer a 15-minute call. We might turn that back on. We got overwhelmed and we'd have these incredible conversations that might lead to sales opportunities for B2B as well. We turned it off because we ended up with half our day being taken up with these calls, which was amazing, but we had a big second half of the year planned, so we just paused it temporarily.
Was that for Hatch or for?
No, for Powrsuit.
For Powrsuit.
Yeah, because it's such a great way to learn why did you sign up? So we've now put in place more automated flows for some of that.
Is there a real plan behind newsletters? Now that you've mentioned newsletters, I've been wanting to ask you about that. Is there a real how important is newsletters in the building of a business, especially if it's a service-based business like you guys?
I think all of this stuff is changing really, really quickly because even things like cold calling is coming back because people are sick of robots. So I feel like newsletters are probably going to go through an interesting period where is it quality of content? Is it the community that it creates? I don't know. For us, we felt like it was really important. Firstly, for research, like it's the easiest way to test, do people share? Like, are they actually do they find value? We are sort of the unofficial intranet for a lot of companies now. They use, because our newsletters is one bite-sized topic plus action every fortnight now. We've cut it down in half. So they will take that and share it with their team and go, let's all do this action. So we add immense value for free. Which I think is a really good benefit of a newsletter. Like if you're sharing a newsletter, it has to add a lot of value, make it easily shareable. And so that then becomes a trust building and awareness building asset. In terms of, I don't know. I still feel like we're learning in terms of the path to conversion. Is it the best way to get people to convert? I couldn't tell you. Because I think like LinkedIn is becoming a really big tool for us as well as our events. So we're just testing, like we've cut the amount in half and it hasn't had any impact on how useful it is.
We'll get to LinkedIn and what was the other one? Events in a minute. But let's stick to newsletters. And you were talking about how things are changing with calling. That cold calling is coming back because we're sick of robots. And we're also sick of emails. No one's answering emails these days.
Yeah. And and what is it called? Pitch slapping on LinkedIn, where someone like comes to you and immediately bombards you with like their offer. Yeah. So I think people really crave, this is what's underlying all my businesses as well. People crave connection, genuine human relationships, and cold calling, weirdly, has kind of become one way you can show that. Like it's an actual human you're talking to.
Yeah. And I think people appreciate the call.
I think so. That's what I hear. I mean, we're going to learn tomorrow, but I think worst case, they're too busy. Best case, you're helping them with something that's top of mind.
Yeah. So with newsletter, you wanted to make it really helpful, really relevant, and when people sign up to your newsletter, you were ringing them to find out why they signed up. And what did you learn from those conversations that helped make the newsletter better?
Well, everything's an ecosystem for us. So then it helped make our platform better, helped make our podcast better, helped make the way we onboard people better. Like we got connected in with decision makers. So there was a lot of outcomes from it. I think the main thing we learned is that a lot of women feel alone. They feel like they are the only one dealing with whatever their struggle is, which I find really shocking because you just think, we talk to so many people. We're like, the 5 calls I had today had exactly the same problem, but we feel like it's us, that we're broken or that there's something wrong with us. So learning some of those really intangible things, like I think that stuff was has been really useful. And then also just understanding how people's days are structured, like everyone's busy and overloaded, and how do you show up in an inbox, and how do they perceive your product fitting in the world, and do they even know you have a product, or did they just subscribe to the newsletter? How are they sharing it? Are they sharing it? All of that stuff, I think, is in 15 minutes you can find out a lot.
You ask them all these questions.
Yeah, I mean, I always just go with where the conversation takes you. But yeah, if someone's telling you a lot about where they're at, it kind of ends up being micro-coaching. They walk out feeling amazing because they've been able to talk about something and we've learned a lot about them.
Do you call them as soon as they sign up, or like a few weeks down the track?
We would ask if they wanted to have a call. We'd email them and say the next day saying, hey, you signed up. Would you like to have a call? And then we'd follow up. And so it was sort of self-selecting, which is actually quite useful as well from a startup perspective, because only the people who want to talk to you will talk to you. Now, I've put in place a few things in the past, and we do it as well now, which I'm sure is very common, but even sending an email that's like, answer with 1 to 5. 1, don't want to hear from you anymore. 2, interested in this for myself. 3, and people quite often reply with one of those numbers, and then you can decide what to do from there as well.
And how have you found podcasting for your business, for Powrsuit?
It's so hard to know. Like, we're so early stage. I think we call them power walkers, because often people will plug us in and go out for a walk and get their, a taster of professional development done. Our advocates are massive advocates. Like, they love it. They listen to it weekly. They post about it on LinkedIn. It's amazing. We are at the stage now that we have quite good awareness. So our job now is to go, is this the best awareness to lead to conversion? How do we do that nurture flow? And make sure we're not just giving away value, that actually we are leading people into the thing that's actually going to change their life. Because, there's only so much you can get from a podcast or newsletter in terms of really tangible, actionable, professional development. Like you can't talk to other people, you can't share experiences, you don't get the accountability, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to know, but yeah.
Yeah. I suppose, how do you want your podcast to come across to people? Where do you like to see it in the future?
We see our role, which is actually just mirroring back what our members and community have told us, as being incredibly relatable and practical and real. There are a million podcasters who will give you the theories and frameworks, and actually in professional development, theories and frameworks, best practices. When you got 5 minutes and that's all you've got before you have to run out to the sports game to pick up your kids, none of that stuff is helpful. So being able to say, this is where we've failed, this is where we've mucked up, this is what we want to see in the world, this is the tools we've used and continue to use to solve this thing or build this skill. It makes, I feel like then we become like this really safe, trusted place where people can be vulnerable and figure things out together, rather than pretending we all have it sorted and floundering.
So you're talking about podcasting and having that balance between sharing enough information to lead to curiosity and growth, but also showing the potential value of what people could get if they sign up to your venture, your work, your services. How have you found that balance at the start, and like how have you seen it now? Have you been very different in how you do your delivery? And
I think now with our podcast and newsletter, we teach the why and the what. So often pulling on research and really grappling with individual skills and challenges. So it might be how to deal with conflict or how to break the busyness cycle. And so we can kind of share a lot of that stuff. And the platform where you get on-demand professional development is the how, like right down to on a silver platter. Here is the template, here is the agenda, here is exactly step by step how you can roll this out in 5 minutes this week to make a difference to your career. And I think that balance, that's what I've heard works quite nicely. Like the free content should be inspirational, aspirational, helpful, valuable, but it tends to be really hard to action stuff. Like we all are guilty of going to webinars and courses and going, that was really amazing, and then life gets in the way. So the platform is designed to short circuit that human tendency and nudge us to action so that we can see and track our progress.
Because do people get one-on-one support from a human or
each other? Yes. So we have three types of events in Powrsuit. We have mini masterclasses that break big capabilities down into 15-minute really actionable lessons. Interviews with amazing aspirational people, because we don't have enough role models that look and act differently than the status quo. And then peer coaching. So rather than paying $300 an hour for a coach, we upskill our members and they can join small rooms together and tackle top of mind challenges. Big, small, doesn't matter. Come and you A, upskill in coaching, and B, get some coaching. So all of that's included, which is quite fundamentally different from how we normally do professional development.
And are you the only organization that is doing this?
Yeah, we've really redesigned it around what women need. All that research we did has led to this. So we know it has to be bite-sized. We know it has to be actionable. We know it has to be lower cost, because normally professional development is reserved for women at the top or with a direct line of sight. They're going, you are our top performer. We want to put you in a leadership role. Here's $10,000 to go on this course. Everyone beneath that track is left to their own devices. So by substantially lowering the cost and making more of an impact, and then it also has to be measurable. Most professional development can't be measured because it's one-off, whereas over the course of the year, we can actually track the impact we have for organizations.
How do you track?
We do self-assessment. So every new member answers a bunch of questions about their goals, how they self-rate their skills, likelihood to stay with their employer, and then we're adding more of this as we go. But 6 months in, they do the same. And so we can see like 20% are more likely to stay with their employer, huge leaps in critical self-leadership skills, massive improvements in critical relationships. Like I think it's almost 100%, 95% of our members improve their manager relationship, which is the make or break for staying and going, and it's also hugely impactful for performance and productivity. So we track all that so we can feed back to organizations, as well as some of the invisible barriers they're placing in the paths of their women, which may or may not be impacting churn, which is hugely expensive for companies.
Because what were the biggest objections that people had when you had to pitch Powrsuit?
I mean, we're still coming up against some objections. Budget.
Budget.
But budget,
I would say time and commitment, because by the sound of this is like a monthly thing.
It's it's
for
weekly, actually.
How long does it go for?
It's a monthly or annual membership. So you sign up for all inclusive for however long you want. No cancellation fees or anything. We have weekly live events, but our philosophy is do less and celebrate less. So you pick one from on-demand library or live events a month, just pick one that resonates and do that. And then everything's handed to you on a plate from there. What we tend to find is our biggest advocates, who are our members, end up doing more, because they're like, if I can slot in 15 to 30 minutes a week and take a step forward every week, I transform where I'm at in an organization and in my career very quickly.
And so what are some of the biggest objections that I've had, and who typically has those?
So budget is a big one, because budgets have been slashed in this market. We deliberately launched in a terrible economy, which I think is a really smart move. But
why?
Because it's the hardest it's ever going to be. Like if you can sell something in this market, you can ride that wave up.
Do you think this has been the worst market we've ever had?
I mean, it's the worst. I'm a very delicate snowflake, because I did the GFC with a web design business, which was when everyone was switching to websites. So I had good outcomes there. And then Hatch launched and took off in the COVID pandemic. So again, massive growth. So this is the first economic downturn that I have experienced, the negative sides of. But yes, budgets, professional development, marketing budgets are often the first to go.
Because all I can think about right now is the amount of leadership trainers that I know and business coaches that I know. There's heaps of them. That's why I'm thinking, I don't know if like this is like leadership training is the last thing that you want to do in a difficult market. So with the objections, how do you go about that?
Well, I think the leadership side of things, that's the classic.
Yeah.
We are investing in our top levels, and the goal is almost the trickle down effect, that they will impact everyone below them, whereas we bottom up. So traditional professional development is sort of seen more like a benefit, like because it's hard to measure, it's easy to cut, which is another thing we want to change. That if you have these top leaders and they have, especially with the cut of middle management, a lot of decimation of that level, huge amounts on the shoulders of managers, coaching, therapy, managing, like all of that stuff that they have to do. And if we can train the people working underneath them to do those things much better, they save a lot of time and energy and have a much better overall performance. But that is not how the market necessarily sees it. So we're doing a bit of education around that in the market, but which is because, everyone always has budget if they know that there's going to be a good return on that budget.
Of course.
So it's selling them on the cost benefit ratio. Time is a big one, but it is such an interesting one because one of the first things we teach is it's sort of like if your money's controlling you, you're not in a good spot. If your calendar's controlling you, you're not in a good spot. If you are so busy and overloaded, it means you've lost control of your calendar. So actually couple of the key things we teach is prioritization, calendar management, saying no, taking back control so that you can prioritize this investment in yourself that actually helps you deliver better work and higher quality outcomes.
Did you have to train and learn this all yourself, or in terms of what you're going to offer to people, like coming up with a curriculum almost? Because this is like a training. Like, how did you come up with all the information?
We have lived experience. That's another thing that makes us really different. We have run companies and led teams, and this is the stuff that we had to learn the hard way. No one teaches you this until you get to fairly senior levels. So our belief is that if we can teach people earlier the stuff that we had to learn the hard way, easy. We also bring in external experts. So we have people and culture experts teaching pragmatic tips on how to run a one-on-one, which, by the way, no one's ever been taught. So they're all misconstrued as status updates or missed or skipped. And she's got 5 steps, quick agenda. People were sharing it in the live event with their manager to go, can we run our one-on-ones like this now? Their managers haven't been taught it either. So really it is just pragmatic lived experience. And that's one of our rules. We don't want professional speakers. We want people who are hands are dirty, doing the doing now and sharing their playbooks for how they do it really, really well.
So in terms of the objections, we're talking about time, money. What else are people objecting to?
There's a gender issue. When you do anything with gender, there's a what about the men? We actually have a fabulous allies group, and so that solved that objection, but also built this incredible group of people who come in and talk about inclusive leadership and diversity and all sorts of really interesting stuff that encourages those sorts of conversations. But yes, we want something for everyone is a thing, and I think that's again a sign of the economy that it's easier to tick a box and say we've rolled out this one-off training for the whole organization rather than having really targeted interventions for people who have different needs and different challenges they're facing. So that's another one. Probably we've unproven, like we are now because we've got some evidence behind us. But
how many members?
700.
And this is across New Zealand?
Across New Zealand and Australia. We're growing in Australia and Singapore actively at the moment, and then we've got them scattered around the rest of the world as well. Yeah. We're getting a little bunch in the UK, but we're kind of avoiding it because of the time zones with live events. But when we get to critical mass there, we'll obviously figure out how to deal with that.
What do you do when you say live events? Are you talking about Zoom events or in person?
Yeah, we have live events online every week, and mini masterclasses and interviews are then forever in our on-demand library, so you can listen or watch through the mobile web apps. But because we have them every week, we often have of that probably about 60 of our members are allies. So of the 600 and something women, we normally have about just almost 100 turning up live every week, different people, different weeks. So it's pretty epic turnout for weekly live events.
Yeah. What about the split between B2B, B2C with the 700?
60-40, 60 coming through businesses and 40 are self-led.
Okay. Interesting.
They stay pretty static as well, yeah.
Yeah. So objections, we were talking about time and budget and the gender question, why is it just women?
Yeah.
Why did you just pick women? Because of the main premise that women are not really being trained up to be leaders.
Well, we're not represented in senior leadership. There is a huge gender leadership gap. And that starts at the very first broken rung, where for every 100 men promoted into the first management role, only 87 women are. So it's a huge jump. And then from there, it just keeps growing. So that women are the biggest opportunity. And it sounds weird because we see it as all these different reasons why women aren't getting there. But if you think about it from a high-performing business, if you have women who are under-optimized or you have placed invisible barriers in their paths and you're not using them to the full extent of their capabilities, you are missing out bottom line figures. And we could tackle, most of our stuff is relevant, and we do one-off trainings for organizations as well, relevant for everyone. But women present the biggest opportunity and they are being underserved.
Quick one. Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate Let's talk about LinkedIn. How is that playing a huge role in building Powrsuit?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the world's biggest professional network. So it is where people go to talk about work. We have experimented with a bunch of stuff on there, and my co-founder runs our LinkedIn page. We post polls. We just try different things to share the stuff, that lessons that we from both the business, growing the business, and then also what we're sharing in the network. Is a really great way for our members to connect as well, because we're all about, connections close gaps. So our members can connect through LinkedIn as well. We have a lot of our members have opted to or know that they can add LinkedIn experiences as Powrsuit so they can find each other. So yeah, it's kind of just a combination of factors that LinkedIn helps with.
Because I noticed that you had about 5,000 or something followers on your LinkedIn page alone. How did you get to that number?
Posting valuable content, I think.
That's incredible. That's so good for you in 18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you found LinkedIn in terms of customer acquisition or client acquisition and building your brand? Yeah,
I think it's becoming more and more. That's why I'm always sort of tossing up with newsletters and podcasts, that LinkedIn is in many ways a lot easier. And it seems to, it's the easiest way for people to learn about us, because someone they know will share or like or engage in a post, and it widens our audience. So yeah, it's one of the tools that we like to use. Yeah.
What about we're talking about events as like an integral part of your business as an offer, but events in terms of a way to awareness of your brand and being able to talk about it. How have you been able to use events? And how do you even get into that for people who might be in a similar situation or similar business as you are, or a service business, or even a product business, who have no clue how events work? What can you teach us about it?
I think, like anything in the startup world, resilience and grind are kind of the things that you need to succeed. So we just started. We started by saying we'd come and run workshops at various other people's events, so women's groups, organizations. We actually didn't even think about it strategically at all. We were just like, let's try this, and people were interested, so we kept doing it. We are revising that non-strategy now for a couple of reasons. One is that events are really good for awareness, but people who go to events aren't necessarily thinking, I'm now going to sign up to a professional development platform. So there is a very loosely dotted line. There's also something about giving value away for free. And there's an awkward thing there where it ends up being a bit you can come along to this thing, but it's actually the same level of value that other people were paying for. Like there's a little thing there that so in Singapore and Australia, we are using events for awareness, but in New Zealand, we're starting to be a lot more discerning. And so we do one-off trainings for organizations and we speak at conferences and all of that, which is amazing. But we are now much more aware of, well, what is the benefit to us doing it as well? Because we love to be generous and give away value, but we also have to be really ruthless with our own time as well.
Yeah. So what has been the number one way that you've been able to make to convert basically people to sign up to your program?
I don't think we have one, and maybe we should, but it feels like we just have a lot of levers, and people might come to an event, they might subscribe to the newsletter, they might listen to the podcast, they might talk to a couple of friends. I mean, I've got to say, if I'm thinking about one channel, it's word of mouth. It'll be my friend is on Powrsuit and they have raved about it and told me to sign up. Like that's probably the biggest. Or one of my team members is on it and they've gone to the people and culture team and said, we need to get more women on it. Like that is probably the best way for us. But all the other ones are just levers that kind of work together. And whether we'll keep using them, we don't know. Like again, we're 18 months in, so we're just sort of like trying and each tool to figure out where it fits and if it fits. Instagram, probably our worst, and it's whether or not we should even keep doing it. So hard to know.
I agree. Instagram has been really terrible.
Yeah.
Have you looked into TikTok?
We did, but I just don't know. Yeah, it was just it was like that ruthless prioritization of like, do we want to invest a bunch of time in this other channel? Like we might start to use our podcast and use the video and just repost it, but if that might take us away from, I don't know, cold calling. So it's, where do you draw the line? Yeah.
And so when you look at the mistakes that you've made, can you please tell me the one that you always remember and the one that you maybe haven't shared, especially whether it's Powrsuit or Hatch?
There have been so many, but I think the biggest lesson I took away from Hatch was I would rather fail spectacularly than play it safe and grow slowly, I think, or stagnate. And that's not exactly that we didn't do that, but I think we often took the safe choice or the smaller choice. And I know there's a philosophy of fail fast, but something in there.
What was it about? Do you have an example?
Yeah, I feel like there was just a few feature things like we wanted to launch. We knew that that individual shares are a really great way to learn about investing because you get really passionate about a company and you buy them, but it's actually not a great long-term strategy. So we wanted to build something like a series of funds and a way to access them. And this is very complicated finance stuff. There's lots of tax issues and regulatory issues. And that was probably where we got stuck. We could have been really bold and go, we're going to invest a ton of money, because it is a ton of money in the finance sector, and just back this strategy, or we can kind of chip away at little ways of doing it, and I kind of feel like, and we didn't do it a lot, I've got to say. I mean, and we grew incredibly rapidly. I think it's just more of a mindset thing of where you feel that fear, think about how you could choose the bold option, and that means like now we're going straight to Australia and Singapore, even though we could stay here and grow the New Zealand market. I'm like, it's going to take forever. So let's go now, go early, and be scared all the time and be doing new stuff all the time and have no reputation and feel that pain. And so it's that probably is and it's not that I've ever like done it poorly. It's just probably, a thing that is top of mind, because I think I could have done some things differently with more of that mindset.
What do you think you wish you knew about Powrsuit now that you, compared to when you first started?
I mean, I suppose if we talk about sales, I think it's that I actually hadn't realized how much sales drives business growth in B2B. And, you talk about the Facebooks and the Googles, and it's like, we're this giant company. They have giant sales teams. And when you scratch beneath the surface, there's some product-led companies, especially in B2C, but a lot of B2B businesses have just an epic sales team, and they really invest in it. And I didn't know that. And I came from an era, it wasn't that long ago. You create a product and you create product-led growth, and that's enough. And I think I wish I'd known, because we probably would have invested more in that at the start. And because we've had 18 months of sort of trying to figure it out. And maybe on day one, we'd have just gone straight to let's do some cold calling and get cracking.
Mm-mm. So how would you have learned? How different would you act now that you know this is something that is significant? Would you hire a sales team? Would you want to grow into having more people in your team to do the calling for you? How are you going to act on that?
We one thing about Kristen and I is we adapt incredibly quickly. So we're doing cold calling tomorrow. There you go. We have learnt this lesson in the last week or two. We've put in place new nurture processes. We had a call a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "What about your nurture flow?" And we said, "We don't know what that is." And now we've rolled it out, MVP, and then we are going and learning how to cold call tomorrow. So we just adapt. We go, okay, what's the thing? Right, is it a priority? Let's focus on that priority. It's interesting what you just said sparked the other big mistake, which is around funding, which I won't go into too much, but we are bootstrapping Powrsuit because we want to control the thing that we want to deliver and the problem we're solving as long as possible. And it is a cheap industry to get into, in the sense we're not a fintech with all the massive costs. And that, I think, is another mistake that I've probably made in past businesses, of not realizing how funding has such a massive impact. And it's something I hear from founders all the time now. It seems glamorous, but it makes a huge difference how you fund your business.
Yeah. And so how has this impacted you and your business?
Well, that's why we are bootstrapping Powrsuit. But when you say, are we going to hire a sales team, we're bootstrapping. So there is that.
You're the sales team.
Yeah. So there is a constant tension, and we're at a revenue now. We're about 50% up on our revenue last year. So it's pretty good for this environment. So we're sort of shuffling money to the side, going, what is the next person we hire? And we're looking into I don't even know what they're called, S something, where they are the people who do the cold calling and pass them over. See, this is how much of a noob I am at sales, and book meetings with us. So would that be a really great investment of that money to take some load off our plates and focus our attention more on where we can be highly valuable? But Kristen and I have a high capacity for work, and we are very adaptable, and we work incredibly quickly. So most of the time when people see what we do at Powrsuit, they assume we have a big team behind us, and we just don't. It's just us.
I was going to say, it's just you two?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I'm on my third trip in the last week to Auckland.
To Auckland?
No, I went Sydney, Auckland, home, Auckland. And then I've got probably a week at home, and I'm off to Singapore. So it is a lot of work, a lot of being on the road.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, you own and control your whole business. So, and I kind of like the hustle. So.
Last question. I know we're supposed to end here, but how did you get into Singapore?
Same way we do everything else.
Or
we just bite the bullet and go. I start
Australia.
reaching out to people and saying we've got a good reputation. We've done a lot, and we have pretty epic careers behind us now. So you build that mana to be able to go. But you also just use your networks. We're huge fans of networking, and we teach this in Powrsuit for exactly this reason. You tap into your networks, they make connections, you start 6 months out talking to people, you ask them who else they can talk to. So this trip I'm going, I've got a paid internal training. I'm running our Powrsuit event there. I'm hopefully speaking at an event for 200 to 300 people, and I've got my whole calendar full of meetings, and that's trip 2. So it is just endlessly grinding, talking to people, making new connections, finding opportunities, taking rejection, putting your name forward, and finding those super connectors and those door unlockers, and really, really being kind back to them and grateful to them.
Okay, this is going to be my last question. Would you have been able to do all of that by yourself without a co-founder?
Oh, Kristen and I, I wouldn't, if I have a choice, I would never work without her. I feel like we have the perfect complementary skills and style of working.
How did you?
We met at an incubator-y thing that led to Hatch being started. So we started Hatch together as well.
Oh, so she was your co-founder with Hatch?
Yeah, we've worked together for about 8 years now. So we are just
wow.
we just work so tightly together. I wouldn't want to. I don't know if I could. And obviously couldn't do half as much stuff. That would be the first thing. but I've never had a working relationship like this, and I think it's just critical to our success. So yeah, no advice on how to get them.
Yeah, I was going to say any advice on how to get a co-founder.
Ours is pure luck, but also we invest a lot in our relationship. It's a very interesting relationship. It's very intense. So we actually don't have that many stumbles along the way. We've had a couple of bust ups, but very minor in the comparison, like just kind of, high stress. We're constantly operating in high stress, fast paced environments. But we really invest. We like each other. We enjoy each other's company. We care about each other. We have huge respect and admiration for each other. I think I do for her. And we just keep kind of holding those things. We have shared values. So we care about the same stuff. So we hold that stuff really dear. And the little bits and bobs that get in the way when you're tired and stressed, like you resolve them quickly and move on.
Well, I personally am looking for a co-founder for my podcast, which is why I'm asking you about the question, because I found it very interesting looking for one, and messaging has been such a difficult thing to do because you're really putting yourself out into the world. So your advice has been really helpful.
Oh, well, I'm pleased. Yeah, I mean, I would say be very careful about who you choose, because mismatched expectations is the thing I've seen.
It's
blow
like
up
marriage,
most.
really, isn't it?
Yeah, and people, if you obviously looking around your studio have a really high getting things done, able to kind of muck in, but also think strategically. You will be putting a lot of effort in. A lot of people don't know what that looks like in reality.
Exactly,
and they think
like
they know.
The effort that's put in, it needs to be 100% each.
Yes, and that's where things fall apart. In my experience, not personally, but watching other founder relationships, it's that mismatch expectation and effort, and not every and that can be managed as well. Like you can manage how much share you get and all of that sort of stuff. But in my experience, most people think they are equal at the start and then dive in optimistically, and it can get very wrong very quickly.
And by the sound of things, that you and your co-founder are aggressively equal in everything that you do, and equally passionate and obsessed about making things work. And this is why you're growing and succeeding relatively fast.
Yeah, and we just know what each other cares about the most. Like Kristen cares about things like she does a lot more of our like onboarding, because she wants to meet everyone and nurture them and find out how she can connect them, and she's doing a lot of the planning for our events in terms of like how she matches people and all of that stuff. I'm more like, how do I create more efficiencies and think about how we solve these problems that are coming up? And we just kind of, but then we both cross over on both of those things, so we just sort of weave things in and out.
It's really nice to hear, and I'm really, really pleased that you came to the studio and we had a chat. It's been amazing to have you. You're fantastic. I wish you all the best. If people want to find out more about Powrsuit, how can they do that?
Follow us on LinkedIn. It's Powrsuit, Powr suit, so without the E, like your big old 80s power suit. Follow us on LinkedIn or come to our website, powrsuit.com, and we always love to chat. You can probably tell. So come and find us and have a chat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Natalie.
Thanks.